I still hear my son's voice in my head every time I close my eyes. Dad, do not ask questions. Run. Now. That was supposed to be the happiest night of my life. 35 years with Margaret. 35 years with the woman who still left little notes in my lunchbox even after retirement. 35 years with the woman who knew how I liked my coffee and could tell I was worried just by the way I folded a newspaper. I am Robert Hayes. I turned 69 last spring. And until that evening, I thought I knew everything about my life. I was wrong. I had made reservations at Bellucci's Steakhouse 2 months earlier. Margaret loved that place. She always ordered the same thing: prime rib with grilled asparagus and a baked potato. Every anniversary, she insisted we sit by the window because she liked watching people walking by. I arrived 20 minutes early. I always did. Margaret used to tease me for it. She would laugh and say I was the only man in America who showed up to dinner like he was reporting for military duty. I smiled, remembering her voice. I checked my watch. 6:30. She was supposed to be there. I texted her. No answer. That was unusual. Margaret never ignored messages. At 6:35, I called her. Straight to voicemail. I frowned. Maybe traffic. Friday evenings around Boston were always a mess. I ordered iced tea and waited. The waiter recognized me. We had celebrated our 30th anniversary there too. He smiled and wished us a happy anniversary. I thanked him. At 6:45, I checked my phone again. Still nothing. My stomach tightened. Not because I thought something terrible had happened. Margaret was always 5 or 10 minutes late. She spent too much time deciding which earrings matched her outfit. That was Margaret. At 6:52, my phone rang. I smiled, expecting to see her name. Instead, I saw Daniel. My son. He rarely called. We usually texted. I answered with a laugh. Your mother is late again. You know how she is. There was silence. Then I heard breathing. Heavy breathing. Dad. His voice sounded wrong. Cold. Sharp. Not my son's normal voice. Daniel. Dad. Listen to me carefully. I sat up. Something inside me changed. What's going on? No questions. Another breath. Get up right now. I blinked. What? Leave the restaurant. Daniel, slow down. Dad. His voice cracked. Run. Now. I froze. People around me were eating and laughing. Glasses clinked. A couple near the bar was celebrating something. Nothing looked wrong. Daniel, where's your mother? He ignored the question. Dad, get out. Do not wait. Do not look for Mom. Just go. I stood up slowly. My hands suddenly felt cold. Son, you're scaring me. I know. He sounded like he was fighting for breath. Trust me. Please. Just trust me. I grabbed my coat. The waiter smiled and asked if everything was okay. I nodded automatically. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. Daniel, tell me what happened. Not here. Get outside first. I pushed through the front doors into the cool October air. Cars filled the parking lot. Streetlights reflected off the wet pavement. I looked around, confused. Daniel, I'm outside. For the first time since answering the phone, my son exhaled. But his voice shook when he spoke again. Dad. He paused. Mom never made it to dinner. For a second, I thought I had heard him wrong. The traffic on Hanover Street was loud. A bus rolled by. People were laughing outside the restaurant. Life looked normal. Nothing around me matched the fear in my son's voice. I tightened my grip on the phone. Daniel, what are you talking about? I asked. What do you mean Mom never made it? He did not answer immediately. I heard voices in the background. Then I heard a car door slam. Dad, I need you to listen to me. Stay where you are. Do not go home. Do not call anyone. I am coming to get you. My chest tightened. Daniel, where is your mother? Silence. Then he said something I never expected to hear. We do not know. I felt the world around me slow down. What do you mean you do not know? He lowered his voice. Dad, I cannot explain everything right now. I just need you safe. Safe. That word did not belong in a conversation about my wife being late. Margaret was probably stuck in traffic. Maybe her phone battery had died. Maybe she had stopped to buy flowers like she always did. Last year she had shown up carrying a chocolate cake because she said restaurant desserts were overpriced. Margaret was practical. Margaret was predictable. Margaret was home. But Daniel sounded terrified. I had not heard fear in his voice since he was 13 years old and broke his arm playing baseball. Dad, are you still outside? Yes. Good. Stay there. I rubbed my forehead. Daniel, I swear if this is some strange misunderstanding. Suddenly, 2 black SUVs turned into the parking lot. Men stepped out. Jackets. Serious faces. One of them looked directly at me. Daniel climbed out of the passenger side. My son was 41 years old, but in that moment, he looked like the exhausted college kid who used to fall asleep on the couch after finals. He ran toward me. Actually ran. Daniel never ran. Not anymore. He wrapped his arms around me. I stood frozen. Dad, thank God. He pulled away and looked me over like he expected me to disappear. Come with me. Not until you tell me where your mother is. His face changed. Not anger. Pain. Dad. His eyes became red. We cannot find her. I stared at him. Cannot find her. He nodded. Her car was found 30 minutes ago. My mouth went dry. And he looked away. Empty. I felt dizzy. No. That is impossible. I know. She called me this afternoon. She reminded me to wear the blue tie she bought me. I know. She told me she had a surprise. I know. His voice broke. Dad, I know. I sat down on a concrete bench outside the restaurant. My legs no longer felt steady. People walked past us. Nobody noticed anything unusual. A couple held hands. Someone laughed. Somewhere nearby, music played. But inside me, something cold was spreading. Daniel sat beside me. He took a deep breath. Dad, there is something else. I looked at him. What? He hesitated. I had seen that expression before. When he told me he wanted to join the FBI. When he told me his marriage was ending. Daniel only wore that face when life was about to change forever. Dad, he said quietly. Mom left something behind. I frowned. What? He swallowed hard. An envelope. I blinked. What envelope? He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a sealed white envelope. Across the front, in Margaret's handwriting, were 6 words that made my blood run cold. Only if I disappear. For Robert. My fingers trembled as I stared at the envelope in Daniel's hand. Even from where I sat, I recognized Margaret's handwriting immediately. 35 years of birthday cards, grocery lists, Christmas notes, and little messages tucked beside my coffee mug had made her writing as familiar to me as my own face. I touched the front of the envelope carefully. Only if I disappear. For Robert. I looked at my son. How did you get this? Daniel glanced around before answering. It was in her car. My head snapped up. You said her car was empty. It was. He swallowed. But this was sitting on the passenger seat. I stared at him. No, that does not make sense. Margaret would never leave me a letter like this. Daniel lowered his eyes. Dad, I know. I turned the envelope over. It was sealed. My name was written in blue ink. The same blue ink Margaret always used because she hated black pens. She used to joke that black ink looked too serious. I remembered her sitting at our kitchen table last month writing thank you cards after our church fundraiser. She had smiled and complained that nobody appreciated handwritten notes anymore. I held the envelope in my hands, and suddenly I could smell her perfume. Lavender and vanilla. My chest tightened. Open it, Daniel whispered. I shook my head. Not here. He nodded. One of the agents approached us and spoke quietly to Daniel. My son stood and listened. His face grew tense again. After a moment, he turned back to me. Dad, we need to leave. Where are we going? My place. I frowned. I want to go home. No. His answer came too quickly. Not tonight. Daniel, I am tired. I just want my wife. His eyes filled with sadness. I know. We drove in silence. I sat in the passenger seat of his SUV while Boston lights blurred past the window. Every few minutes, I looked at the envelope resting on my lap. I kept expecting my phone to ring. I kept expecting Margaret's picture to appear on the screen with her smiling face and her usual words. Sorry, sweetheart. Traffic was terrible, but the phone remained silent. Daniel's house felt empty. His divorce had been finalized 2 years earlier. The family photos were gone. The guest room still smelled like fresh paint. He made coffee, though neither of us drank it. We just sat at the kitchen table with 2 untouched mugs growing cold. Finally, he looked at me. Dad, open it. I carefully broke the seal. Inside was 1 sheet of paper. Nothing else. My eyes blurred before I even read the first line. My dearest Robert, if you are reading this, then things did not go the way I prayed they would. I stopped breathing. Daniel reached across the table. Dad, I continued. Please do not panic. And please do not blame yourself. There are things I have been protecting you from. Things I could not explain. I blinked. My hands shook harder. Daniel, I whispered. What is this? My son looked terrified. Keep reading. I swallowed and read the next sentence. If I disappear, Go to our bedroom. There is a false panel beneath my side of the dresser. You must find it before anyone else does. I looked up slowly. What? Daniel's face turned pale. False panel. I read the line again. Then another sentence made my blood run cold. Trust no one completely. Not even the people you have known for decades. And Robert, if Daniel is with you, tell him I am sorry I kept this from him too. Neither of us spoke for almost a minute. The clock above Daniel's stove ticked loudly in the silence. Midnight had come and gone. Our 35th anniversary had officially ended. Not with cake. Not with candles. Not with Margaret laughing at me for wearing the wrong tie. It ended with a letter and 1,000 questions. I read the last line again. Tell Daniel I am sorry I kept this from him too. My son sat across from me with his elbows on the table and both hands covering his face. He looked exhausted. Older. Suddenly, I saw the little boy who used to cry when Margaret left him at kindergarten. Dad, he said softly. I swear to you, I do not understand this either. I nodded. I know. And I meant it. Daniel had spent 20 years with the FBI. He had seen things I could not imagine. But tonight, he looked lost. Just like me. I folded the letter carefully. Margaret always folded papers perfectly. Even birthday cards. I could almost hear her voice telling me not to crease the corners. That thought hurt more than anything else. I want to go home, I said. Daniel looked up immediately. Dad, we should wait until morning. No. I stood slowly. Your mother told me to find something. I am not waiting. He hesitated. Then he nodded. Okay. But we are not going alone. 2 agents followed us in separate vehicles. I hated it. It made me feel like some criminal was waiting inside my house. But Daniel insisted. The streets were empty by the time we reached our neighborhood. Our home sat quietly beneath the porch light. The pumpkins Margaret had arranged for fall were still lined up beside the front steps. She had painted little smiles on them 3 days earlier. I stopped for a second. The flowers she planted near the mailbox were still blooming. Everything looked normal. Too normal. I unlocked the front door. The smell hit me first. Cinnamon candles. Margaret's favorite. The blanket she had folded over the couch was exactly where she left it. Her reading glasses sat beside her mystery novel. A half-finished crossword puzzle rested on the coffee table. It felt like she had stepped out for groceries and would return any minute. Daniel stood quietly behind me. Neither of us spoke. Finally, I walked upstairs. Our bedroom looked untouched. Her blue sweater hung over the chair. Her slippers were beside the bed. I reached down and picked one up. Tears filled my eyes. Dad, Daniel whispered. I shook my head. Not now. I moved to Margaret's dresser. 40 years old. Oak wood. I built it myself during our first year in this house. She loved that dresser. Said it reminded her of her grandfather. I knelt down. False panel, I murmured. Daniel crouched beside me. Mom never mentioned this. No. We searched carefully. Nothing. I ran my fingers along the bottom edge. Then I felt something. A tiny groove. I pushed. A section moved inward. Daniel froze. I stared at him. He stared at me. Slowly, I reached inside. There was a small metal box. Nothing fancy, just a simple lockbox. My heartbeat grew louder. I lifted it onto the bed. Daniel's eyes widened. Dad, I opened it. Inside was a photograph. An old photograph. Me. Margaret. Daniel at age 10. And standing beside us was another man. Someone I had known for more than 30 years. Someone I trusted completely. On the back of the photograph, in Margaret's handwriting, were 5 words. He knows more than me. My hands froze around the photograph. I stared at the face beside us. Daniel leaned closer and suddenly sat back as if the bed had become too hot. Neither of us spoke. We did not have to. We both knew him. Frank Miller. My oldest friend. 40 years. Golf every Saturday. Fishing trips in Maine. Thanksgiving dinners. The man who stood beside me at Daniel's graduation. The man who cried at my mother's funeral. The man who brought Margaret soup when she had pneumonia. I turned the picture over again, hoping I had misunderstood. But Margaret's handwriting had never lied to me before. He knows more than me. Daniel rubbed his face. Dad, I looked at him. No. My voice sounded strange. No, not Frank. Daniel nodded slowly. Maybe Mom meant something else. I wanted to believe that. I really did. But something had changed inside me. Margaret had hidden a false panel inside a dresser she loved. She had left letters. She had vanished. And now she had pointed me toward my oldest friend. Nothing about any of this was normal. I looked inside the lockbox again. Beneath the photograph sat another envelope. Smaller. I opened it carefully. Inside was one sheet of paper and a key. The paper contained only an address and a date. October 15th. Tomorrow. I frowned. What is this? Daniel read it over my shoulder. Storage unit. We looked at each other. Then my phone rang. I almost dropped it. Frank. His smiling face appeared on the screen. My stomach tightened. Daniel's eyes widened. Do not answer, he whispered. I let it ring. Then it stopped. Seconds later, another call. Frank again. Then a text message appeared. Buddy, heard about Margaret. I am on my way. I stared at the screen. How did he know? Daniel frowned. I have not told anyone. I looked at him. Neither have I. My heart began pounding. Another text arrived. Everything will be okay. Trust me. I sat down slowly. Trust me. Margaret's letter had told me not to trust completely. Not even people I had known for decades. I closed my eyes. For months earlier, Frank had insisted on replacing the locks on our back door after a storm damaged the frame. Last spring, he had helped Margaret organize old boxes in the garage while I was visiting my sister in Connecticut. Last Christmas, he and Margaret spent almost 2 hours in the kitchen wrapping gifts while I watched football. At the time, I thought nothing of it. Why would I? They were family. Daniel interrupted my thoughts. Dad, when was the last time you saw him? Yesterday morning. What? He came by. Brought cinnamon rolls. Said he wanted to wish us a happy anniversary early because he had plans tonight. Daniel stood up. Dad, did Mom seem nervous? I thought about it. Margaret had been quieter lately. Not unhappy. Just thoughtful. Last month, I caught her sitting alone on the porch after midnight. She told me she could not sleep. A week ago, she hugged me longer than usual. 3 days ago, she made my favorite peach cobbler for no reason. Yesterday morning, before leaving for church, she held my hand and smiled. Promise me something, sweetheart, she had said. If life ever becomes strange, promise me you will keep going. I laughed and kissed her forehead. You are talking like a fortune cookie. She smiled, but her eyes looked sad. Just promise me. I promised. I never asked why. My phone buzzed again. Another message from Frank. Robert, answer me. We need to talk. Daniel stared at the screen. Then he looked at me. His face had lost all color. Dad. He paused. There is something I have never told you about Frank. Mom made me promise to stay quiet. But I do not think I can anymore. Daniel sat down slowly. He looked exhausted. Not like an FBI agent. Not like the confident man who spent 20 years chasing criminals and solving impossible cases. He looked like my son again. The boy who used to come to our bedroom during thunderstorms because he hated lightning. I waited. Tell me, I said quietly. He rubbed his eyes. Mom made me promise never to say anything unless something happened to her. My stomach tightened. Something like what? He shook his head. She never told me details. Not everything. But about 3 years ago, she asked me a question. He paused. She asked if I trusted Frank Miller. I blinked. Why? I asked her the same thing. He looked down at his hands. She told me not to worry. She said she was probably imagining things. But she wanted me to know that if she ever disappeared, I should protect you. I stared at him. Protect me from Frank. She never said that. He swallowed hard. She just said to be careful around anyone who suddenly knew too much. My head began to ache. Margaret and Frank had known each other almost as long as I had known him. We had vacationed together. Frank had taught Daniel how to fish. He helped me remodel the basement after I retired. He cried when Margaret's sister passed away. He was family. Or at least I thought he was. Daniel continued. About 6 months ago, Mom called me from a grocery store parking lot. A grocery store? She sounded nervous. Not scared. Just different. He looked at me. She asked me something strange. What? She asked if people inside the FBI could be corrupted. I stared at him. And I told her anyone could be corrupted. Every profession. Every agency. Nobody is perfect. He nodded slowly. Mom became quiet. Then she said something I have never forgotten. He closed his eyes. She said, that means I have to be more careful than I thought. I felt cold. Daniel, why did you not tell me? Pain crossed his face. Because she begged me not to. She made me swear. He looked around our bedroom. Dad, I thought she was overthinking things. She always watched those crime documentaries. He tried to smile. It did not last. I thought she was just worried. I looked toward her side of the bed. Her book still rested on the nightstand. Her reading lamp. Her glasses. Her tissue box. Her favorite hand cream. Everything remained exactly where she had left it. She knew something, I whispered, and she carried it alone. Daniel nodded. I think so. Suddenly his phone vibrated. His expression changed immediately. He stood up and answered. Yeah. He listened. His face became serious. When a pause. Understood. He ended the call and turned toward me. Dad, somebody entered the storage unit an hour ago. I stood up. What? Security cameras caught someone. They did not get inside. But somebody knew about it. My heart skipped. Frank, we do not know. Daniel grabbed his coat. Dad, I need to get you somewhere safe. No. My answer came immediately. We are going there tomorrow. Dad, no. I have spent 35 years with your mother. If she left something there, I am going. Daniel sighed. Okay. Then he looked at me carefully. There is something else. What now? He hesitated. I checked Mom's bank records tonight. I frowned. Why? Because I had access. He swallowed. Dad, Mom rented that storage unit almost 2 years ago. 2 years. I sat back down. Margaret had hidden something from me for 2 years. Not because she did not love me. That I knew. But because she believed she had to. I closed my eyes. Then another memory surfaced. 2 summers ago, Margaret came home from lunch with Frank. She looked upset. I asked what was wrong. She smiled and said she was tired. That night, she held my hand while we watched television. Out of nowhere, she asked me, Robert, if I ever kept something from you to protect you, would you forgive me? I laughed and kissed her forehead. There is nothing you could do that I would not forgive. She smiled. But I remembered now. There had been tears in her eyes. Sleep never came that night. Around 4 in the morning, I found myself sitting alone in the kitchen with one of Margaret's old mugs in my hands. It had little sunflowers painted on the side. She bought it at a craft fair 15 years ago because she said happy coffee tasted better. I could almost hear her laughing at that ridiculous sentence. Daniel had fallen asleep on the couch downstairs. Exhaustion had finally caught up with him. I sat there listening to the refrigerator hum and watching the first signs of dawn appear through the window. Everything around me looked normal, but nothing inside me felt normal anymore. At 7 o'clock, Daniel woke up. Neither of us said much. We drove to the storage facility in silence. It was located 20 minutes outside Boston in a quiet industrial area. A gray building, rows of metal doors. Nothing special, but my hands were shaking as I held the key Margaret had left behind. Daniel checked the area before nodding. Unit 214, he said. I walked slowly. My heart was pounding harder with every step. 2 years. My wife had kept this place for 2 years. What had she been carrying all alone? I inserted the key. The lock clicked. Daniel opened the door. I expected boxes, furniture, old Christmas decorations. Instead, there was only one folding table, one chair, a small lamp, and a laptop. That was all. I stared in disbelief. On the table sat another envelope. My name. Margaret's handwriting. My chest tightened. I opened it immediately. My sweetheart, if you found this, then you are closer to the truth than I ever wanted you to be. Please sit down before watching what is on the laptop. And remember one thing above everything else. I never betrayed you. Not once. Not ever. Tears filled my eyes. Daniel squeezed my shoulder. I sat down and opened the laptop. No password. A video file appeared automatically. My breath stopped when Margaret's face filled the screen. She wore the blue sweater she loved, the one hanging over the chair in our bedroom. She smiled, but her eyes looked tired. Hi, sweetheart, she said softly. If you are seeing this, then I am sorry. I am so sorry. I covered my mouth. Daniel sat beside me. Neither of us moved. Margaret smiled sadly. First, Robert, I need you to know something. I love you. I have loved you every day for 35 years. And Daniel, sweetheart, I love you too. I know you are sitting beside your father. I know you are trying to protect him. Thank you. Daniel lowered his head. Tears rolled down his cheeks. Then Margaret continued. Everything that has happened started because of me, but not because I did anything wrong. 2 years ago, I accidentally learned something that frightened me. Something I could not ignore. I wanted to tell Robert immediately, but I knew he would try to protect me, and that would have placed him in danger. I looked at the screen. Danger from who? I whispered. Margaret smiled weakly. That answer is not for today, sweetheart. Not yet. Then she looked directly into the camera. And Robert, before you become angry with Frank, please remember this. Frank is not your enemy. Daniel and I looked at each other. Both of us froze. Margaret continued. Frank Miller saved my life. More than once. If you are watching this, then he has probably already called you. Please answer him. He knows things I cannot explain here. Trust him, but trust carefully. I blinked. What? Daniel sat up straight. Dad. Margaret smiled again. There is another person you need to worry about. Someone much closer. Someone we both trusted. I stopped breathing. Margaret's eyes filled with tears. And Daniel, sweetheart, if you are hearing this, I need you to forgive me. Because I lied to you too. Then the screen went black. For several seconds, neither Daniel nor I moved. The screen remained black, reflecting our faces back at us. I could still hear Margaret's voice inside my head. Frank is not your enemy. Someone much closer. Someone we both trusted. I swallowed hard. Daniel. My voice sounded weak. Who is she talking about? He slowly shook his head. I do not know. But his face told me something else. Fear. Real fear. The kind I had seen on him only twice in his life. Once when his daughter was born too early. And once when he called me outside the restaurant. He stood up and began pacing inside the storage unit. This makes no sense. Maybe she meant a neighbor. No. He stopped. Mom chose her words carefully. She always did. I stared at the frozen image of my wife. Even now, she was protecting someone. Or trying to. Then I remembered something. Call Frank. Daniel turned around. What? Call him. Dad, we do not know. Margaret told us to trust him. Daniel hesitated. Then he sighed and dialed. Frank answered immediately. Daniel. His voice sounded exhausted. Thank God. Frank, Daniel said coldly. Where are you? Silence. Then Frank answered quietly. At St. Luke's Church. I frowned. Church. Bring your father, Frank said. Please. There are things he needs to hear. Daniel looked at me. I nodded. 20 minutes later, we parked outside the old church where Margaret and I were married 35 years earlier. The parking lot was almost empty. Frank sat alone on a bench near the side entrance. I barely recognized him. His shoulders looked smaller. His hair seemed grayer than I remembered. And when he saw me, tears immediately filled his eyes. Robert. He stood up. I wanted answers. I wanted explanations. But before I could speak, Frank hugged me. Not like a guilty man. Like a grieving friend. I am so sorry, he whispered. I stepped back. Where is she? Frank closed his eyes. I do not know. You knew she was in trouble. Yes. And you said nothing? He nodded slowly. Because she asked me not to. I stared at him. Frank, I have known you 40 years. I know. What did Margaret tell you? Frank looked toward the church doors. 2 years ago, she came here. She was terrified. Terrified of what? He shook his head. She would not tell me names. Only that she had discovered something she wished she had never learned. Daniel folded his arms. And you believed her? Frank laughed sadly. Son, your mother was the strongest woman I have ever known. If Margaret Hayes was scared, then I was scared too. We sat inside the empty church. Morning sunlight filtered through the stained glass windows. Frank reached into his coat pocket. She gave me this 6 months ago. He handed me a small envelope. My name. Again. I almost laughed. It seemed Margaret had hidden pieces of herself everywhere. Inside was a photograph. Not old. Recent. It showed Margaret smiling beside a woman I recognized immediately. Daniel froze beside me. No, he whispered. I looked at him. Who is she? His face turned white. Dad. He swallowed. That is Karen Mitchell. Who? My supervisor. My eyes widened. Your boss. Daniel nodded slowly. Assistant Director Karen Mitchell. Frank looked confused. Margaret never told me who she was. Daniel stared at the picture. His breathing changed. Dad. His voice dropped. Mom trusted Karen. I turned the photograph over. Margaret had written one sentence beneath it. 7 simple words. I was wrong about her. Be careful. Daniel stared at the photograph as though it had suddenly become something dangerous. I had known my son long enough to recognize when fear was real. This was not confusion. This was fear. Frank sat quietly beside us in the church pew. Sunlight filtered through the stained glass and painted colors across the floor, but nothing felt peaceful anymore. Daniel, I said softly. Talk to me. He rubbed both hands over his face. Dad, Karen Mitchell has been my supervisor for 8 years. And he looked at the photograph again. Mom met her 3 years ago. I introduced them at a charity dinner. Frank frowned. Margaret seemed to like her. Daniel nodded. Everybody liked Karen. She was respected, brilliant, trusted. He stopped. Which is exactly why this makes no sense. I looked at Margaret's handwriting beneath the picture. I was wrong about her. Be careful. My chest tightened. Did your mother ever mention Karen after that? Daniel closed his eyes. Only once. He paused. About 6 months ago, she asked if Karen was under stress. I laughed and said everybody in the bureau was under stress. He shook his head slowly. Mom smiled, but she looked disappointed. I thought nothing of it. Frank leaned forward. Robert, there is something else Margaret told me. I turned toward him. What? She said if things became impossible, she wanted you to remember one thing. His eyes filled with tears. She said she had no regrets because loving you was the best thing that ever happened to her. I lowered my head. For the first time since all of this began, I cried. Not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly. 35 years. Every birthday, every Christmas morning, every road trip, every silly argument over paint colors and restaurant choices, every dance in our kitchen when old songs came on. Margaret had spent 2 years carrying a burden she never shared. And somehow she still found ways to make peach cobbler and laugh at bad television shows. Daniel squeezed my shoulder. Dad, I nodded. I am okay. But I was not. I missed her voice. I missed the way she always stole fries off my plate. I missed hearing her hum while watering flowers. I missed ordinary things. Things I never imagined I would lose. Then Daniel's phone rang. He froze when he saw the number. Karen Mitchell. He stared at the screen. Frank stared too. Nobody moved. Finally, Daniel answered. Karen. Her voice sounded calm. Too calm. Daniel, where are you? Church. With your father? Yes. Silence. Then she spoke softly. Good. Stay there. Daniel frowned. Why? Another pause. Because if your mother planned things the way I think she did, someone else is already looking for you. My blood ran cold. Daniel stood up. Karen, what are you talking about? Her voice changed. Not fearful. Sad. Daniel, I tried to protect her. Frank looked at me. I looked at him. Neither of us breathed. Karen continued. Your mother was right about many things. But she was wrong about me. Daniel's eyes widened. Karen, I cannot explain over the phone. Her voice cracked. But there is one thing you both need to know before anything else. I stood up slowly. Tell me where my wife is. Silence filled the church. Then I heard a sound I had dreamed about since that terrible anniversary night. A soft laugh. Faint. Familiar. And then Margaret's voice came through the speaker. Hello, sweetheart. I am sorry I missed dinner.